Hey, this is Dave from metalepidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. Dave here from Metal Epidemic. Kyle's away already. Welcome to another album review, joined by Duncan and Kyle. This one's going to be interesting. We checked out the new album from Copenhagen-based hardcore quintet NYT LIV.
I told you should just stuck with your Scottish accent pronouncing it wrong than trying to do it in a Danish accent, and it just didn't sound. It failed.
No. Luckily, we have a Norwegian here, so Kyle is going to translate what I am saying into Danish.
Luckily, we have a Norwegian here, which is a completely different language.
The same thing.
Danish.
It's like when you say, "Are you Irish?" When someone says to me, "You Irish?" No, I'm Scottish. Same thing.
But they speak English, though,
Danish.
Dave. So it's the same language. Norwegian is different from Danish.
Same thing. Potato.
And also, he's not a Norwegian, he's an Englishman living it.
He's
I'm
a Norwegian.
Englishman in Oslo. Whoa, I'm an alien. That's how that song goes, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of.
Felt like an alien a few times over here.
Anyway, Denmark.
He's been in Norway for God knows how long.
12 years.
12. He's practically Norwegian.
Yeah, he's not Norwegian.
Norwegian passport, haven't you? No.
Yeah, that makes me practically Norwegian. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that does. I think if you have that. I don't know why we're doing this, because this band are like that. I wonder what they thought of our album. Oh, wait a second. They're having conversations about where the reviewers are from and what languages are spoken in our country. We already know that.
Yeah. Anyway,
there we go.
Band's new album, døde.
Oh, nailed that though.
That wasn't bad.
Pretty close. That was pretty damn close. That's good.
Baby in the house.
Thank you. That'll be released on November 19th via Indisciplinarian. So the song titles for this album are all in Danish. So I apologise for the horrific mispronunciation.
Are you going to try?
Mispronunciation you're
Give
about
it a
to
shot.
Just do numbers, Dave. Don't do this.
We're Scottish, so I mean, this is just par for the course, really. Kyle's going to help here. He's going to stop me.
I'd love how you keep throwing this to Kyle.
Because I speak Norwegian.
He's Norwegian.
And that's close enough to Danish.
He's like right next door, practically.
Yeah.
If I throw a stone, I could probably hit a Danish person.
See?
If I throw it at a Danish person in Denmark.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So let's go on to the album. This band kind of made a name for themselves in recent years with their recent years. Did I just say that?
Yes, you did. Everything's wrong. You can't even speak English now. We've ruined you. We've broken you.
English is no longer even my first language on this review. Yes, they made a name for themselves in recent years with their self-released EP in 2017. Debut album, which was released in 2019. The response to the album led to the band performing at Roskilde? Not sure how you pronounce that either.
That was pretty close.
Was it? All right, good.
Yeah.
Copenhagen, Spot Festival, and more. As well as
you
shows.
Nailed Copenhagen.
Copenhagen, yeah. Thought I got that one.
%75% of this review is not going to be usable.
Oh man. Anyway, they toured with bands like the Cancer Bats and Turnstile as well. Now, NYT LIV return with Den døde sol, which means the dead sun, emerging with a more forceful and vigorous side, expanding the framework of irate alternative hardcore. Shaped as straightforward Danish poetry without the use of sophisticated words and metaphors, the lyrics are about life and social indignation. The choice and about choices, how we live our lives, about adversity and loss, about selfishness, acting at the expense of others, about the weak in the world, those who need help and those no one will help. So, this is where things get sexy, gents. So,
is this the bit you were teasing earlier on about having some factoids?
Here's a little nugget for you.
Yep. This is what we class as edutainment, listeners. So we're here to educate and entertain. Edutainment.
This album was recorded and produced by none other than Mr. Jacob Bredal.
The Hand.
The Hand, or as we call him, the Hond.
I love the production on this as well. This dude might just be one of these producers that people should be seeking out. Also, he's Danish, so that makes sense.
Yep. And was the frontman for Hate Sphere, who we saw in Glasgow, supporting Gojira.
Biggest hands in metal. They're like
biggest hands I've ever seen. Best gig of my life, Jacob, if you're listening. Hate Sphere, Gojira, in King Tut's in Glasgow. Greatest gig of my life. The album was also mastered by Brad Boatwright, who we've mentioned on a number of occasions on our reviews.
It's the circle of life.
It is indeed. So, everything's coming into alignment here. Yep. My Danish accent is fucking killer. Jacob's producing the album.
That's really good.
What about the songs? Let's get into the songs. This is a really interesting release. The particular tone of the album begins fairly upbeat. Like a more like punky kind of Kvelertak. The first track, Give It Up, wasn't bad. It does have a very Scandinavian feel. Like if you didn't know anything about this band, you would think Scandinavia for sure.
Give it up for Dave's Danish accent. Just really good.
See what we did there. Also, it reminded me a little bit of Loot from earlier in this year.
It's like you're fucking in my head, Dave.
I'm in your fucking head. We've spoke about this band in the past. A little bit of that in there as well, which I quite enjoyed. It's got a very like angst-filled delivery, but also got a lot of kind of melody in the guitar riffs and vocals, which is partly where the Kvelertak and Loot thing comes in. But then, like after track one, the album takes a more ominous turn. Those like uplifting melodies that we heard on the first track are then traded for something that a lot darker and a lot more ominous. An absolutely filthy bass line opens on Men's Livet Forsvinder, and right away
you nailed it.
I'm fucking on fire. Nobody touch me. I'm on fire tonight. You will get burned if you touch me. Right away we are dealing with something a lot more venomous on this track. Something with this track kind of made me think of more along the lines of Eyes that we reviewed last year.
Last year. A
little bit more kind of aggressive, bit more kind of violent in tone. But I like the switch up. I wasn't expecting it. Going from that first track, which was quite uplifting, into something a bit more kind of extreme. That first track is definitely like the most upbeat thing on the album. Once you get through it, you realise like it's not an anomaly, but you know it is quite different to the rest of the track. They don't abandon the melody. It still like rears its head throughout this release. Something that's very subtle, you know, just in the tail end of a riff or some lead work. And I liked how they played both sides off one another. A good example of that is track 3, which is Grey Days in English. I'm not going to try and pronounce that Danish title. But that track constantly kind of weaves in and out these like bleak riffs, really, really kind of tortured sounding vocals, but with these like kind of uplifting kind of flashes in between. And I'm assuming those like kind of uplifting parts were supposed to be the kind of moments of hope, given the kind of name of the song. I've said this before, I don't normally connect so much with bands that are singing in their native tongue. We've been through this before, and it's just because I really don't know what they're singing about. I did obviously Google some of these song titles to get an idea, but weirdly I kind of felt like the music and the vocals on this album kind of conveyed an emotion that was hard to miss, to be honest. Like you could tell the themes of the album were covering some pretty dark subject matters. And I commend the band for that, because that's not easy to do, especially when they are singing in a completely different language. I was able to tell, you know, the kind of tone of the tracks just from the sound of the music and the vocal delivery. I also liked the direction they took on track 6, Leaked, which I think I'm not quite sure what that means. Was that run or escape or something like that? Maybe, don't know.
Yeah, something like that. It's difficult with that word. It could mean like flown or escaped or
right, okay.
Yeah.
Although it still had some like kind of hardcore punk tendencies, there were also a bit of like post-punk elements in the guitar riffs and the vocals, almost like venturing on like Beast Milk territory at times. But I thought that kind of change or twist in style gave the track more of its like kind of own identity in the album. That being said, I think the uplifting stuff they do, like that first track, are brilliant. I'd love to have heard more of that. That particular tone, I really enjoyed it. I think it would probably balance the album out even more, but I was kind of like, when I got to the end, I was kind of like a little bit frustrated that they didn't go more in that direction. But you know, they could have if they wanted, but they didn't. But it's their album, so they can do whatever the fuck they want, really. Lastly, the production, like Jacob, my man with a hand, or hands. He has got two hands, by the way.
Hopefully two. Difficult to mix with one hand, not impossible.
Yeah,
but.
True. We spoke at length, myself and Kyle, recently about his production on the LLNN album, and this is like, it couldn't be a more different sounding album, like production wise. But what I love about this guy is he is creating a production for each band, you know, individually. This guy is not doing cookie cutter, you know, like presets. He is very much like a kind of Kurt Ballou type character. He's delivering a sound that best suits the band rather than just using the same production techniques on every album. And again, on this, he's crafted a production that works perfectly for this band. He's stayed true to the genre. You know, the production has a lot of the characteristics that you'd expect from a gritty kind of hardcore punk production, but it also has tones and qualities that you'll probably only hear on a NYT LIV album, you know what I mean? This is really good. This is a really enjoyable album, but I honestly believe this band haven't put out their best album yet. I believe there are bigger things to come from these guys, so what I would say is get in on them now, and then when they explode and everyone's talking about them, you'll be able to say, I've been listening to these guys for years. I remember when Metal Epidemic were talking about them 4 or 5 years ago.
Hashtag hipster syndrome.
Yes, indeed. But still a very, very enjoyable album. It is one that I'll go back to definitely throughout the year. Duncan, what did you think about this one?
This is fucking great. I love this. Before knowing that information, one of my big plus points in this is the production. The production is absolutely fucking awesome.
Yeah.
There's just something like... bands that are of this genre don't tend to be as heavy as this, and I don't necessarily think, well, they would be live, but not necessarily always recorded.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's because they're trying to make themselves sound heavier. I just think the production aids that quite a bit. I think our big buddy Jacob is very good at getting that. There was at times on here that reminded me, now that you've mentioned it, very reminiscent of The Candidate. In terms of the drum production and the bass, less on the guitars, but drum and bass particularly, it really thumps through. This band have loads going on in the best possible way. They mix that kind of, what I would class as almost kind of Scandinavian kind of punk rock, a la a band like Loot, for example, but a band like, I never get it right, I always get the wrong one. It's not. Was it the Vines? The Vines were Scandinavian, I think. I may be wrong about that. The Hives.
Hives, yeah.
The Hives. There's elements of the Hives in there as well, and that kind of alternative sound, which they mix very, very easily in with this kind of heavier sound. I hear what you're saying as well about that the kind of the optimistic start of the album, which is washed away. But you yourself said that the kind of premise of the album would actually make sense from that point of view, that it would start like with a degree of optimism and slowly work its way to the more kind of darker and pessimistic scale. So that to me like kind of fits the concept. I have no issue understanding what a vocalist is singing about or anything. To me, I kind of focus more in on the energy and the melody, and those are the bits that I really kind of grab onto. And from that perspective, there's so much going on here that I love. I love the vocalist tone. I think it's fucking great. He's got a great sounding voice. This is an album that is not long either. It's about the 30-minute mark, and it flows in really, really well, giving you plenty of depth, plenty of kind of attitude and atmosphere, and in a way which was really pleasant to listen to, whilst at the same time evoking kind of gnarlier stuff. Unlike Dave, I will not try and pronounce any of the names of any of the songs, because that would be like an 80-year-old trying to explain Bitcoin. You know, it's not going to work, and chances are you'll be more confused than you were before I started. Suffice to say, I loved how it opened. The second track is The Tits. Track 5 and 6 are great, and then I love how this closes. The last track, bit longer, bit more room to play with, and they make use of the space and make use of the tones as well. It's a great album from a band that I will 100% agree with Dave. I think we're just scratching the surface here, and that's exciting, because there's plenty of bands out there doing in or around what these guys are doing, but not the same way. And there's something quite exciting specifically about the scene in Denmark just now, where we're getting a lot of diversity, but we're getting bands that are kind of taking styles and crafting them to make their own, and that's where I think this band exist. I think they've got all the elements nailed down, and enough of their personality and attitude over the top of it, and it's for them to just continue expanding on their sound, because it's there, man. It really, really is. This is a very, very, very easy listen. You know, there's nothing too taxing about it, but that doesn't belie the really, really good songwriting and great production on it. So yeah, don't sleep on this one.
Yep. Kyle?
There's a lot of bass on this album that I really like listening to. The bass tone on this it gave me chills, man. It's so good. It was just like the one thing I just was drawn to immediately. I was like,
yeah,
nice. So yeah, production was absolutely really, really good. I'm not going to say flawless, but really, really good. It suits the band absolutely down to the ground. Could not fault it, really, to be honest. I mean, considering it's all in Danish, and I read the lyrics and I understood most of it, the lyrics are pretty... I think simplistic is the wrong word because of the language difference and everything, but they're very to the point, if you know what I mean. There's no, like they explain, there's no metaphors, there's nothing. They're very, very in your face with the lyrics, and I think that really works in their favor, especially with this kind of music, because it's very... I kind of want to say it's a bit more rock and roll feeling than a lot of other hardcore and bands and stuff like that. It's got a bit of that sort of swagger and a bit more to the point. There's not
it's
a
the
lot
Hives comparison I was making too, where it
agree.
Kind of strips a lot of that pretense out and just gets to the riffs.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that was apparent from the first song. And I thought it was great, really well. I haven't really heard anything quite like it. I mean, I've heard a lot of hardcore bands and rock and roll and stuff, but they just struck me as something a bit different, especially, like we say, coming from Denmark. There's a lot of diversity coming out of there right now. So, I think my favourite song is actually the last one, I mørke, which means in the dark.
Nailed that. See how he did that with Steve? Almost. Yeah. He's
that was
shaming you.
So fucking smooth, Kyle.
Did it like nothing. And he actually sounded authentic.
Yeah.
So much so, if we put you two together in a room and I couldn't see you and I had to listen to you both say that, I'd be like, that second person, he is authentically Danish. That first person, not sure where he's from. Doesn't sound right, though.
That's a great closing track. Thanks, Duncan. No, I mean, there was that whole like mid-section with all the bass and everything. It just really took me away. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Really good way to end an album like that. It's a short album too, and I think you're right. Like, I think it's good to release such a short, to the point album, because is this their first one, debut, or is it like they've had a couple of...
Second album.
Second, yeah. But I think, considering that's a very good idea, because like we said before, it's definitely just scratching the surface with this band, and I'm sure the releases to come are going to be like bigger and better. I really hope so, because I mean, I say bigger and better, but there's going to be more depth to them and more everything. I can't wait to hear what they do next. I'm really, really interested. I think this is really good second effort from NYT LIV.
Yeah, as a concept as well, something that is going for such a not nihilistic but certainly more depressing tone. You don't want that album to go long. You know what I mean? Like, there's a diminishing returns on that, so I think that you get the point by the end of it, and then if you want to go back, it's very easy to go back again and then ride that train again.
Yeah,
for sure. Okay, so ratings for this new one from NYT LIV. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and as we've all said, I think this is just the beginning for these guys. I definitely expect them to come back with something even better the next time. I would probably go in at a 4 out of 5 on this one. Duncan?
Twinsies, 4 from me. This is fucking great. I think it's brilliant, and I look forward to checking it out. Interestingly enough, Eyes was the band that you mentioned as a comparison as well. Like, as a listening double bill, that would pair really well with this. So.
Yeah, for
They're
sure.
all, are they Danish as well? That's that part of the world. If, if they're not Danish or Swedish, it's one of the two. I want to say they're Danish as well. So lots of cool stuff coming out of there. So yeah, 4 out of 5 for the band whose name I won't butcher.
Yeah. And Kyle?
I'm going to come in exactly the same, 4 out of 5.
Nice.
I do it in Danish, but I speak Norwegian.
Which is a different language, not to be confused as the same language, Dave.
Right. Yeah. This one drops on November 19th on Indisciplinarian. If you want to check out the band, I will put links in the description below to their Facebook and to the pre-order for the album so you can check it out. Let us know what you think. Give these guys a listen. Drop some comments in below. Happy to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.